Ha ha, I cried, my new school will be fun, for I can all of the children one by one. Yes! Yes! Nighttime.
How's it going? Welcome back to another great video with your boy, the Savior. Oh yes, I'm back at it again, boys. Another early review. Quality content. You found it. You found the hidden golden gem of YouTube. Congratulations to you. Join the Savior Empire today if you like game reviews, someone who isn't a corporate sellout, and basically destroys the establishment with every chance that I get. If you like philosophical videos, game retrospectives, and video game philosophy and all that kind of stuff, you never know what you're gonna get on this channel. Japanese vlogs, all kinds of stuff. Make sure you join the channel today. Be a part of something great. Join the Empire today. Join the Savior channel. I love this community so much. Please fire down below in the comments. Whoa! For this video. Oh no, I'm panicking. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have a corporate sponsor for this video. Oh god. Oh god. So I'm just gonna ask you guys, okay? One simple favor, okay? And all I ask is you subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds to hit that button, but that means so much to me, and I just think you're an awesome human being if you consider doing that. Of course, if you enjoyed the video. If not, that's fine. Oh, we're gonna dive into it. Oh, that's what the YouTubers, they love to dive in. They just love to dive into content. This is my brutally honest opinion. Don't you love it when YouTubers have such clickbaity titles like brutally honest, and basically they're just shilling out for a game or corporation that basically paid them off? Oh, what a time to be a gamer. What a time to be a YouTuber, okay? This industry isn't completely corrupt. The gaming industry is purely at its peak now. We don't get broken games that are unfinished and completely just false advertisement and just pushed out the door when they aren't even ready. The gaming industry is at its peak. We get quality content, we can trust the publishers, we can trust the developers. Usually, let's be honest, it's not the developers' fault, it is the publishers that rush things, that basically show false gameplay, and it's all just marketing now. And yeah, please don't watch people like IGN because they are complete shills of the industry, these massive outlets, okay? Trust smaller reviewers, people with integrity. So let's just get into the nitty-gritty of this Redfall review, this Redfall game review. Now, I'm not a massive Bethesda fanboy. I'm not like Mr. Matty Plates, okay? I'm calling out a lot of people in this video. I actually like his content, but this guy will pretty much praise Bethesda for taking a dump on his face. So, a lot of people, not just him, a lot of YouTubers are going to love this game simply because it's a Bethesda game, and there's a lot of Bethesda fanboys out there. Now, I personally love their games. I'm a huge fan of Skyrim, Oblivion, and actually my all-time favorite game, Fallout 3, which I know is surprising, okay? So, I do like Bethesda, but we can also acknowledge that Bethesda are stuck in the past. They are way behind. They might as well be Nintendo at this point, because they are stuck living in the days of 30 FPS gaming, with not even great graphical details, and I'm not a graphics guy. I don't care about high-quality graphics. I care more about art style. That's what should matter. The most photorealistic graphics possible. That is what the industry loves. And it's very stale, it's very boring. It's what makes games feel homogenized and they all look the same now. But Bethesda, let's be honest, they never push the boundaries. And this is an insult to gaming, and a lot of people are going to boycott Redfall straight away simply because of this, okay? This is 30 FPS. Now, that would be fine if the graphics were absolutely amazing, I guess. Still then, it's ridiculous since we are in the next-gen gaming phase of evolution, okay? We are in next-gen already. We are heavily into next-gen, and we still can't get 60 FPS on, new games releasing. That is a sick joke. Especially when a game looks like this. This looks like something back from the early 2000s. It doesn't look good, and I don't mean that just in the graphical sense, but in an art style. It's not pushing the boundaries, and honestly, I'm disappointed because I love games like Prey, okay? That was so under the radar. It deserves so much more love and attention. That game was a masterpiece. A lot of people love Dishonored, but it does seem that the people behind those games and now Redfall have kind of fallen off the wagon. Maybe they had a little bit too much whiskey, I don't know what their problem is, but after Deathloop, you know, it just kind of went downhill, and sadly, this looks like it's going to be another Deathloop type situation. It's not going to be a good, you know, hidden indie gem like Prey, and it's not going to be a massive success like Dishonored. I know you just want me to get into my review of Redfall, but I just had to preface the video by saying that because that is a big hot topic at the moment for a lot of people. A lot of people are just going to boycott it straight away simply because it's only 30 FPS and there's no sign that they're going to change it. Also, there was a lot of drama around Redfall because they basically almost lied to the consumers, because on the physical release box art cover, it does state that it's going to be 60 FPS, but in reality, it's only 30 FPS, and a lot of people think that's a complete joke, which is understandable.
He awakened! Very cool, Master. Very scary. Thank you.
I will just also preface by saying that all of my reviews that I do are early reviews. They are based on early footage of the game that's already released. Research that I do extensive research and note-taking to find all of the details out. I do deep digging so you don't have to. I also interview other content creators who get more hands-on than I do. And when I do get the chance, and believe me I do, I get to play the games early myself. I get to review the preview version of the game and the early access. I don't do some BS score at the end of the video. I basically respect your intelligence enough that you can form your own opinion. I can't give you a definitive number that this game is a 10 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10, okay? That's just stupid, because reviews, art, everything is a subjective experience, okay? Especially when it comes to this type of media and just engaging with any type of art. So what I do is I weigh up the pros and the cons, the positives and the negatives, and list them, and then you can decide whether or not it's worth buying based on all of the positives and the negatives that I list. I would say this is a positive, but it can also be a huge negative. It also depends on what type of person you are for this point, because yes, this is a solo game. It can be a solo game, but it is built around multiplayer. Now, what made the other games so great, like Prey, like Dishonored, was it was purely focused on, you know, storytelling, world building, you know, great narratives, and a solo adventure. And especially this game is just busted, okay, when it comes to the multiplayer, and I'm going to get into that more. So this, I feel, is quite a negative, because yes, you will have fun playing with friends, but the multiplayer is broken. And the reason why I say it's broken is because they haven't, at least in the early access that I've managed to see and what I could get hands on, they haven't, you know, tuned it correctly, okay? The difficulty is broken. This game should feel tense, because there are moments, especially if you're playing in solo mode, where it can feel tense. It's not a horror game, but it has the potential to give you this creepy vibe because you're, you know, skulking around, shooting vampires, and you will feel in danger if you're playing in solo mode. By playing in solo mode, it changes the tone of the game completely, and that's how it should be experienced, in my opinion. And that should be experienced in multiplayer as well, but sadly they completely broke multiplayer, because in multiplayer the enemies don't actually scale. It's completely broken, it's not difficult whatsoever, the tension atmosphere is completely gone, and that is the backbone of this game, is the atmosphere, is the tone. So the story here is basically a bunch of vampire gods who were basically corporate scumbags. You can imagine them as IGN officials, I guess, but basically they want to live forever and they suck the blood of little children. That sounds like something Jeff Bezos might be interested in, but basically the plot is a bunch of rich corporate scum basically want to live forever, and these vampire gods take over the village. Basically the location that you're playing in is completely shut off from the outside world, and you have to defeat these vampire gods, or it will just be nighttime forever, which is not a good thing. You need that vitamin D, okay? So that's roughly the story. So like I said before, this is a massive negative, and that is, it is only 30 FPS. For a next-gen game to release at 30 FPS, it's a complete joke. Now, I'm hopeful, and I'm not sure, I haven't heard anything, but they probably will patch it to add some kind of 60 FPS mode, because I can't believe it's going to stay 30 FPS forever. I'm pretty sure they've they might have already said. Don't quote me on this, I have no idea. Now, this is another negative. It's not looking that great so far. There's a lot of negatives stacking up, which is the dungeons or the vampire nests that you have to clear out. This is procedurally generated, and this can be done very well in certain games like Rock and Stone, for example, or something like No Man's Sky, where you're exploring a whole bunch of planets. If the AI has enough variation to make interesting dungeons and to make the dungeons actually feel different from each other, that type of game design can be done well, especially in a looter shooter, and that's pretty much what this game is, which is a shame because considering it comes from the developers of Dishonored, and like I said, Prey and stuff like that, you would think this would be a much more focused narrative experience, especially in the level design and stuff like that. It all feels very similar, at least from what I've seen so far. Like I said, this could change in the full release. Maybe there's much more variation later on. Another negative, and this one I don't see many people talking about, and this might just be my experience and my personal taste, but a lot of it just feels kind of cheap. And a big thing that I've noticed is the screen effects that you will get when your character's injured or you get attacked by a certain enemy. They just look super cheap, and it just looks off. There's something off about it. So this is a plus, is the story missions and basically the story moments. This is what's engaging. The story here is actually somewhat interesting, even if the tone is somewhat off, and I'm going to talk about that more. But basically the mission loop is pretty satisfying. You do get some nice loot at the end, some story moments with the missions, and usually you will get mini bosses to fight, and there is a nice gameplay loop. You can be attacked spontaneously by mini bosses or even, bigger bosses at any point, and this does add an element of tension to the game. Another positive of this game is the game economy. The experience and currency that you get in this game is actually support, and basically the whole point of completing side objectives, missions, and all that stuff is you're building a big community so you can defeat the vampire presence. That is the fundamentals of this game. That is how you level up. By completing these missions, that is the best way, of course, to level up and get new abilities, and you will always be finding new guns, new weapons, and new loot. Another negative, I would say, is the tone is off. Now, with games like Dishonored, it was a very serious kind of world space, and the level design reflected that, the characters, the story reflected that. This has the potential to be quite dark at certain points, but the characters that you play as and some of the characters and NPCs that you interact with, basically the tone is just a little bit goofy, and sometimes it's goofy at odd times. It's not trying to take itself as serious as something like Dishonored, and that just depends on what type of player you are. Maybe you will like that. Big last positive of this game is, I would say, for one thing this game does well that actually reminds me of previous games, because their previous games were all about being creative, but there isn't too much creativity I find in this one, is the enemy variation. For example, you get lots of different types of vampires, and they all have their own unique abilities, and that makes you think about, what type of character you're playing as, what equipment you're using, what abilities you're using. Like I said, you can choose between different characters, so there is, an element of playstyle choice around this game. You can't always just rely on shooting up everything, but sadly most of the time you can, because like I said, the difficulty is so easy, especially in multiplayer. But the enemy variation does add a new dynamic, I would say, to the game, and stops it from feeling so generic. For example, you get enemies like the Shroud, which basically limits player vision by casting like a dark magic effect over the area. You also have vampire enemies called Blood Bags, and basically they do an AoE attack when they're killed. A huge explosion, which you have to avoid, that's kind of generic, but there are creative ones in here like the Rook, which is kind of a mini boss that will come down, and if you're outside, they can actually use a thunder attack, calling down storm from the sky to attack you, and then you have to hunker down or think about the best way to take out this target. But the Rook is also very quick and very strong and dangerous with its melee attacks. This all sounds fun and tense, especially in single player, but in multiplayer, these don't feel like a threat anymore because it's very easy just to gang up on them, and it's very easy just to aggro one enemy, especially when it's a mini-boss, and for it to focus on one player. Another interesting thing that they decided to do is within multiplayer, you can actually all play as the same character. You don't have to be locked out of a certain character if you want to play that character, which is nice as player choice, but it also kind of limits the whole team aspect of multiplayer, where you have to work together as different classes, because one character can, you know, summon teleportation, another has a robot companion, another one is a more specialist when it comes to gadgets, C4 and stuff like that. A game that I've referenced before in this video, Rock and Stone, does something similar where you can all play as the same character, but you can still benefit each other because of your different abilities and gadgets. But with the characters in Redfall, kind of limits the impact of all of these characters working together. This is leaving a rather sour taste in my mouth because of all of the negatives I'm listing, but to be honest, if this is pretty much a looter shooter, which is what it is, let's be honest, other games have done it far better. You know, even if you don't like the story or the characters in modern Borderlands, go back and play the OGs. You know, there's so many looter shooters out there. Destiny, I guess you could class as a looter shooter, and what made this developer special to begin with was the fact that it would focus on more narrative experiences and immersive sim elements with player choice. I honestly think that focusing on a multiplayer experience kind of broke this game. The FOV is also very tight. The graphics, like I said, aren't that amazing, and 30 FPS is simply a joke. But I will say that there are positives to this game. If you enjoy Deathloop, if you enjoy their other games, then you will probably still find some kind of enjoyment in this game, especially if you have a group of buddies that want to play this with you. That will make it fun, but I just hope that they fix the difficulty and the loot that you get becomes more interesting and the dungeons become more varied later on. I will also say that these developers are not known for creating great feeling FPS games, okay? It's not Call of Duty, it's not Battlefield, and the shooting does feel a little bit flat, I will say that. It does sometimes feel unresponsive. There is no great depth to the hit detection, and weapons can feel a bit floaty, unlike other games like Borderlands where it feels just right. So I hope you enjoyed this Redfall game review. If you did enjoy my review of Redfall, then make sure, like I said, you do subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on great content. Consider becoming a member. That's how you get extra content. I have so much content that isn't released to the public, only members, so support me that way. That would mean a great deal to me, and you get a bunch of extra content. And check out my music that I make on Spotify. It's electronic synth music, but it's very different. It's a hybrid genre, and I'm sure you will actually enjoy it. That would mean a lot. My music is everything to me, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day, stay blessed, peace out.